welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith with. It's the interview series presented by WFPK at WFPK.org, Consequence, and the Consequence Podcast Network. Thanks as always for making your way here, checking out the series. Please do hit that subscribe button so you can keep up with all the interviews that I put out every single week. It's a great way to keep up with your favorite artists. I get to say that every time because especially when I'm talking with one of my favorite artists, Serj Tankian. Hello, sir.
Hey, what's up, brother? Yeah, thank you. Thanks for saying that. That's really kind, Kyle. Thank you.
It's honestly true, and you just keep giving and giving and giving. I swear you put me in nerd heaven. It seems like a few times a year. Like your output is it's sort of maddening in the best way right now. I don't know if it feels like that to you.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of music and I love putting it out and always looking for fun ways of doing it. And new ways of doing it, which is why we're doing this, our Lupa thing this time around, where you can basically kind of have me in your living room or bathroom or wherever and have me talk you through the song and listen to it with you and stuff. Kind of creepy, kind of cool, kind of intimate. So yeah, I'm just always trying to find an interesting way of presenting new music. This one is different genre-wise. It's kind of more electro rock, kind of world vibes. Even each song is a little different, but definitely mellower than Elasticity or Harakiri or anything else that finishes with E, I guess. Yeah, so I'm excited about it.
Yeah, Perplex Cities is the name of this one. Perplex Cities. If you want to. By the way, I did the AR augmented reality that you were talking about. You were standing just to my right over here, for what it's worth. Okay. So you've been in this room digitally, and it is like I've messed with AR before. It's not the first time. I have VR in the house, one of the headsets, but there's still something a bit off when you pull your phone over and there you are, perfectly standing next to my bookcase. That's it was a great way to listen.
I tried going around me and it doesn't work well. There are 3D versions that they do of that, but then it's not like a real recording. It's more of like a 3D animation of the person and all of that. And I'm like, no, that's getting a little too wacky. But no, it's cool. Yeah, man, as far as output, it's really interesting because I ended up mixing a lot of old demos that I had with vocals because I was just curious as to, well, the story is having to do with an old car. I have an old car and the stereo system is really shitty, but it's perfect in terms of telling me where the bass is and how everything should sound. Now, I've needed to sell this car for the last 5 years and haven't brought myself to it because I like mixing in it and listening to my mixes in it. But the battery keeps dying. I keep on changing the battery every year and stuff. So finally I got to get rid of my car. But in order to get rid of it, I got to mix, at least generally mix all my, vocal music that I have. So I know I have rough demos of my demos, rough mixes of my demos. So I went through that and did that. I ended up with 95 songs I haven't released. Most of them are demos and stuff like that. And, let alone we just finished our third consecutive Netflix series. We've done 3 series of scoring that all of them are coming out between November and February on Netflix. So it's a lot of music. So in terms of output, yeah, we've got a lot going on.
Yeah, it's funny. I've heard that story. Other musicians and the car sound system. I know Tom Waits does that, and Les Claypool. He's told me he's done that, and that's I have an old
good company.
I don't even have a beautiful I don't even have a beautiful car. My older car is like a 2001 Ford Taurus. It's just what it is. And my son is about to turn 16, and he wants it because it has a tape deck and a really good sound system inside it.
That's right. A tape deck. Wow. 2001. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
It was even late for, I think it was even late for tapes in 2001. We were in the mecca of, I don't know how it ended up like that, but he's stuck on that one. So I get it.
Cool. That's a good story.
I'll wrap that in then. Rumi loves his cars. That's the line, right?
Yeah. Rumi loves his cars. Yeah. He loves playing with cars and train tracks and loves music, loves the sounds of guitar. My son, for those that don't know, my son's name is Rumi. And to get double cheesy, this is the second song that I'm releasing about him, which is crazy. And ill-advised. Like everyone would say, "Now, don't do stuff like that. You're getting too intimate, too personal. Make things general so people can relate to them," which I get, I understand, and most music is like that. But you know what? Sometimes it just is what it is, you know. And you kind of change. If you try to change it, it's not. It won't be natural and organic. So you just leave it, and that's just how that song was written, you know. But it's a beautiful song. It's a really gorgeous kind of and funny kind of song. Yeah.
Well, there's a little bit of a Trojan horse in this song too, if it's fair to say that, because you have this playful little line that you turn over for a little bit, and suddenly there's some information dumped on top of it, which I did love, by the way. Like, what was that marriage like? From the songwriter's point of view.
You know, you want to do that, like, you know, that's kind of what I've always done. I mean, you know, you play, you know, you want to have humor within the speech, you know. Prison Song with System of a Down is like, it's like an essay, but you know, there's always the humorous scream or yell or whatever Darren would do, like that would lighten it up. Same thing with all of our songs, really. And it's just it's part of my songwriting, really. It just comes naturally.
Yeah. Well, the stuff that you're talking about, I mean, you hit that line with sustainable growth, and talking about sustainable growth, and that's what I said. It gets heavy. It's something I think about too. I mean, you talk a lot about the things that I'm thinking about or hearing about or wanting to learn about, which is what I appreciate, what I'm attracted to your music anyway. But something about that line, it's like, man, how are we going to do that? How are we going to get sustainable growth when you've got to change the mind of some portion of 7 to 8 billion people?
Right. It's very, it is the biggest challenge at this point for our future and whatever remains of history. For us to be able to, you know, live on this island of a planet that's not going to increase in size, but always expect things to increase: GDP growth, growth in this, growth in lifestyle, growth in value, growth in, you know, and that's how we measure things. We don't measure things with the growth and happiness of the American people. We measure things as the growth in economics of the American country, you know, like, and that's where profits over people come in ultimately. So, and we have to change our perception ultimately, and you know, and it's very difficult because you've got this indoctrinated mantra, you know, that this is the way, you know, and it's very difficult. And the wars that we're sustaining right now are not making those things easier, because what they're doing is pointing us back into a desperate fossil fuel kind of direction rather than the direction that we should be going into. So it's a really, really tough time.
And you gotta hope that, I mean, throughout the history of civilization, I hope that progress has inched its way, that it has been about progress, you know, that in the good way, even with setbacks. But you're right, because we look around, there are multiple wars happening every single time. It seems our attention as Americans can only focus on one at a time. You know, oh, Russia and Ukraine are at it. That must be the only one. And that's not it. I mean, you know, when I check it on yours, you're very great about saying, hey, look what's happening in Armenia right now. What is happening in Armenia right now? Let's take that moment. And that's probably a difficult question to try to summarize, but the best you can.
You know, 2 years ago when System of a Down, we put out those two songs, there was a war going on, and Azerbaijan and Turkey collectively had attacked the Armenian province of Nagorno-Karabakh, which has been historically Armenian thousands of years. They've self-ruled, you know, and a lot of those lands were taken over. There are still people living there, surrounded by the Azerbaijani army, for example. Now, then the Azerbaijani army came to the border of Armenia, the sovereign Armenian nation, the borders of Armenia, and in the last week, they made a huge attack on Armenia proper, and a lot of people died. They shelled 36 cities and villages, civilian infrastructure, etc. And because of the what's called the Azerbaijani laundromat, which is the billions of oil money that they've spent throughout Europe with European members of parliament, even a few American senators. They've been able to get sway and have, keep everything. I call it both sidism. Even though they're the aggressor, they pay enough money so that it feels like a border clash of some type. Well, it's not. People are getting murdered, people are getting killed. Armenia is militarily weaker. As a post-Soviet nation, it had Russia as its guarantor, security guarantor, as a defense pact. Russia's basically left out to lunch in Ukraine. So, so it's a really, really difficult thing seeing your people getting murdered and killed. And I got to say, these Azerbaijani troops are, they've been mutilating and desecrating, like, bodies of soldiers, and a body of a woman soldier was horrifically desecrated, arms and legs cut. They put a stone in her eye and stuff like that. And they're taking videos of this and putting it up on Facebook and different places. It is just disgusting. It's mind-blowing and disgusting. And so we're trying to raise awareness for the international community to pay attention. Nancy Pelosi was just there 2 weeks ago and basically called the aggression of Azerbaijan what it was, and said this is not a two-sided thing. This is Azerbaijan being the aggressor, which was great in terms of pivoting the press of the world and saying that this is what's going on. But you're right. I think there is some type of monopoly on foreign wars in terms of our attention, and it has to do with the choice of our enemies. We empathize more with the victims of our enemies than with victims, right? And that has to do with national, whatever you call it, resource acquisition, national gains, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's absolutely absurd and hypocritical. So anyway, so I coming to that topic, it's something that's very important, and we're trying to raise awareness. I'm trying, besides talking about this with press right now, I'm trying to see if we could do a big event or something to kind of gain more attention and raise some funds.
Isn't that crazy? Crazy for two things. One, that you have to come up with a good marketing plan to get people, behind this. Like, that's
to care about people. Yeah.
Right. And a second, that historically speaking, what will this prove? The aggressors, like, what do you think is going to happen? Nobody wins a war like that. It's not, it just causes another war that causes another war that causes another war. That's maddening. 2022.
It's maddening. It is, and there's a lot of geopolitical stuff we can talk about around this particular thing that has to do with Russia and Iran and all sorts of stuff, with Armenia right there. Armenia is being basically thrown under the bus for other people's interests ultimately, and that's it happens to many small countries. But as an international community of activists and human rights activists, it's our job to stand up and fight for what's right.
Appreciate that you do that. Honestly,
thank you.
Let's see how I can awkwardly pivot back to the music from that conversation.
Okay.
But you have a song on here, Like I Spoke Up. I think that is the easy transition here, because first off, who are you talking about in this one specifically? And second, because this is, musically speaking, as you were talking about world music and Middle Eastern music, this is where we find ourselves on this song, which is just such a great track.
So the story with this is very interesting. Generally, I don't like to get into songs deeply, but this was a unique experience. I have a friend, and he's a great director, and he made a film about Khashoggi, the Saudi Arabian dissident that worked for the Washington Post, who was murdered in Turkey by Saudi agents, right? So he made a film about that, and I saw the film, and I was really blown away. It's called The Dissident, and I was like watching it as he was making it, and I'm like, and he was like, "What do you think? Should we do a song for the credits?" I'm like, "That would be amazing." Now it didn't work out. I started writing the song for him and for as Khashoggi basically speaking, I spoke up to let you know, that kind of a thing. So that was the original idea. It didn't work out in the credits because of the way that the score transpired into the credits. So I ended up releasing it on my own, but I did also change the words and make them a little more general than they were. But that's where it comes from, someone who speaks truth to power and is sacrificed for it.
Yeah. Well, musically, even I love the blending because you do start out with Middle Eastern instruments. I'm going to use that as a very broad term because I don't exactly know what I'm talking about. But
It's an oud. It's a Middle Eastern instrument. It's an
yeah.
oud. Yeah.
And then the guitar comes in, and while it still keeps that riff, it almost feels like this marriage of Middle Eastern and Western sounds. I started wondering, musically speaking, like how close are those? Because we can think of it as in the boxes, but when you're putting, does it feel like the boxes when you're writing it?
If you listen to, I mean, I don't really think of music in that way. I just think of instrumentation. But if you listen to there's Chinese music you can listen to that sounds like blues.
Mhm.
There's African music that you listen to, that sounds like blues, right? Like ethnic African music, obviously, and obviously that's where blues comes from, right? But what I mean to say is I can find common denominators between music all around the world. um, and certain European harmonies that come from elsewhere, and the Germans brought a certain type of music to Mexico. The don't like I mean, I can find common denominators musically everywhere. So I don't see music, you know, I just see music in colors. I don't see it as flavors. I don't see it as um, defined as masculine or feminine or whatever. Like I see music as just one, and that's what it is.
Yeah. You blend it really well. You honestly do. And I could say the same thing. I mean, Forgive Me, Father is such a cool song, and how it starts with pop imperialism. I think I've referenced every song because it's an EP at this point. But it is, there's so many cool things going on here. And I'll shift a little bit because you have the EP, and as we talked about, there's just seemingly so much going on with what you're doing. Shapeshift. I wanted to quickly bring that one up. That's this is a new with your paintings, right? The music inspired
Yeah.
paintings, which is one of the things we
Yeah.
talked about last time. Yeah.
So before you mentioned "Forgive Me, Father." What's cool about that? It's a blues song that I had done a while back, and it just kind of fit the kind of EP, like the other songs in the EP, even though it's different. And I realized I was going to redo the vocals. That's the original one take vocal on it. I was going to redo it, and then it was just had that vibe. And I was just riffing, and not all the words are even formed. And I'm like, I'm going to leave that alone. Like, which you generally don't do for a release, but anyway, that much for that. My new exhibition is in La Cañada, California. It's going to start next weekend, and the public opening is Sunday. And I'm excited about it. They just picked up half of the pieces. Half of the pieces were picked up originally. It's about 20 or so pieces. It's a lot of work, and some small, some kind of a little medium, and some larger works. And it is an anthology of sorts because there's stuff from way back. I started painting in 2013, or I think my first exhibition, sorry, I should say, was in 2013. And so there's stuff from way back there, and there's stuff that I just did, a couple of paintings that I just finished like a few weeks ago. And so it's like a really cool retrospective, I guess. And all my paintings are musically scored. So there are musical scores. You can listen to each painting. The same app that we're using for Perplex Cities, our Lupa, is what we use for our paintings. So you can walk in with your smartphone and listen to the whole exhibition, one painting at a time. And it's a really great experiences that people enjoy. So come check it out if you're in California, and enjoy. Yeah, it's on till November the 1st at Stephanie's Gallery in La Cañada.
Yeah, I'll tell you, when we were last talking about the NFT thing that you were doing, and kind of walking around the digital gallery and just being able to experience it like that. I mean, again, it's just such a cool way to connect. And I do love seeing how you're finding and working with these digital platforms and kind of new ways of doing it. I mean, what else? Are you going to go further in that? Do you have any plans? Are there other cool gadgets being worked on? That's a lame way of asking that.
Eventually, I'd like to do and I've spoke about this before, I'd like to do an all interactive experience where we interact, an experience like almost like at a gallery or a museum where you interact with every physical sense. When you walk into an isolated room, the colors, there's a painting, but there's other stuff happening. The smell is different in that room. You touch something that's different in that room. You smell something, that you see something different. You hear something different. Like each room interacts with your senses, all of your senses, in a completely different way with the thematics of the painting. And I love to do that one day, utilizing technology and space. But I am doing a few other new projects coming up. One is going to be a live show of an operatic suite that I've written called Invocations, that is going to be end of April next year at the Soraya Theater in Los Angeles. They've co-commissioned it, and we're working on it with some really cool vocalists. I've got like an incredible tenor singer, an alto, mezzo alto, an ethnic singer who sings in multiple languages, a good friend of mine, Azam Ali, a death metal singer, and myself. Like 5 soloists, 20-person choir, full orchestra, some ethnic instrumentation. It's going to be wild, and it's going to be, we're going to stream it worldwide upon release, and we'll probably release it as a live record after or something like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, as every journalist would ask at this point, is there a future for the other thing, for System of a Down? I mean, are you guys talking about doing stuff? Because your schedule sounds packed is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, well, I pack my schedule based on whatever comes to me, whatever, I don't know, excites me. As of now, we haven't talked about anything. We will be making an announcement about something next year that I can't really tell you about. So there is that, but further than that, I can't really say.
Yeah, that's something. That's that ain't nothing, Serj. That ain't nothing.
That ain't nothing.
Yeah. Perplex Cities. I absolutely love this. I think this is one of my favorite things that you've ever done solo too. This is just so much fun to listen to.
Thank you.
I honestly mean that.
That means a lot, Kyle. Thank you.
It's been on repeat quite a bit, and I plan on keeping it that way until the next release, I guess. So it shouldn't be too long.
Well, I appreciate that, brother. Thank you. And thank you for the interview. Thank you for your time.
Anytime. Thanks for taking the time to talk about it. We will see you next time.
Sounds good, brother.
And thanks to my guest. Also, thanks to you for checking out the episode in the series. Before you get out of here, hit that subscribe button. Again, you get 3 brand new interviews every single week. New one every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at right here on YouTube, or of course anywhere in podcast land, including iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, NPR, or WFPK.org as well. A great way to keep up with your favorite artists and discover new ones as well. Then after that, actually head over to WFPK.org. That's where I do a show Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern. It's an hour full of song premieres, music news, anniversary spins, bonus interviews, Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern at WFPK.org. Consequence has your music and film news. You can also find me on the social media spots, Facebook, Instagram, mostly on Twitter. All 3 of them, the address is at Kyle Meredith. Do hope you like and follow along. That does it for another edition. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time.